This podcast is for educational purposes only, does not constitute legal advice, and does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you need legal assistance about a legal problem, contact an attorney.
Welcome to Know Your Regulator, the podcast that inspires you to engage. I'm your host, Simone Murphy, and today's episode is going to look a little bit different. Whether you are decades into your profession or you're new to your career, this episode is going to deliver the most essential real-world advice that we have heard from across dozens of interviews with industry experts, regulators, and licensed professionals. So these are the top 10 tips that every license holder needs to hear, and we're going to back them each with insights straight from the experts. So let's get started. We're going to kick it off with tip number 1, which is keep your own records. Seriously, don't rely on anyone else like your supervisor or your school to keep these records for you.
Maintain your own records, keep copies of them, because at a minimum, maybe we can do something with that if we can't get what we call a primary source copy of it. There are still things we can do to get you in, but we can't do much if we're not just going to take your word on it. If you say, well, I had those hours, but the hospital burned down. Okay, well, I'm sorry. That's going to be one of those insurmountable obstacles there.
It sounds extreme, but it happens. Make sure that your files are backed up, they're accessible, your license may depend on it. Tip number 2, know the rules that govern you. Know the rules that apply to your license. Don't wait until you're in trouble to learn them.
Again, be mindful, stay professional, and more importantly, know the boundaries that your board expects you to uphold.
Every board publishes their rules. Bookmark them, read them. Knowing them is part of your professional duty. Tip number 3, respond immediately. When your licensing board contacts you, that is not the time to procrastinate.
Don't fart around. Get on it right away. Obviously,
I agree.
That's something my mom would say, right? Like, respond immediately. It is our responsibility when we have a license to respond to the agency that is issuing the license.
Missing a deadline could mean missing an opportunity to defend yourself. Open your mail, respond quickly. Tip number 4, get professional liability insurance. It's not just for doctors or for hospitals, it's for any professional with a license.
Anybody giving advice and recommendations, I think would want to cover that advice and recommendations, because one disgruntled person, or, let's say you're dealing with somebody that you can't make happy no matter what, even if it's not your fault. At least you got a leg to stand on with having a errors and omissions policy or a professional liability policy would cover your legal defense cost, even if you're wrongfully sued.
Good insurance covers your legal defense, even if the complaint has no merit. Tip number 5, know your license portability limits. Are you planning to move to Texas? Don't assume that your license will transfer automatically.
We have a lot of people come to Texas who want to be LPCs. Texas has probably one of the more stringent LPC licensing requirements in the country, in that we require 3,000 hours of supervised experience. A lot of states only require 2,000 hours. So we have individuals come here who have 20 plus years of experience practicing professional counseling in another state, maybe even serve as a supervisor, training new counselors in that state. And when they get here, I tell them, you can't have a license. You don't have enough supervised experience.
Texas may need you, but it still has its standards. Check your portability early. Tip number 6, don't wait to renew. Don't put off your license renewal. Some requirements cannot be rushed.
If the licensee completes the training right before his or her deadline, they can run into the problem of not being able to renew their license on time. A hold is initially placed on every licensee that is due for renewal until proof of that training has been received. When we lift the renewal hold, it does take 2 full business days for our database to integrate with texas.gov, which is where they pay their payments. So a lot of times licensees have to renew late because they're waiting to the last minute.
Make sure you mark your calendar and take care of your renewals early. Tip number 7, know what triggers complaints. Be aware of what triggers complaints for your agency and then absolutely avoid it.
According to our most recent compliance and investigations report, our 3 most common complaints are billing violations, standard of care violations, and patient records violations. Now, each of these three broad categories includes multiple different types of violations. Billing violations can include insurance fraud, charging clearly excessive amounts, billing for services not rendered, or just submitting a bill for treatment that the provider should reasonably know is improper or unreasonable or medically unnecessary.
It's not always about intent. Sloppy paperwork itself is enough to get flagged. Tip number 8, don't DIY your defense. Don't try and defend yourself alone. You need legal help.
And I think that I need to even overemphasize it now more than ever, the importance of hiring legal counsel, someone who's experienced in these kinds of matters. All too often, we have clients that have come in and they've experienced, a suspension of their license because, they represented themselves and they were under the impression that, hey, I can handle it on my own. I know that, I can learn the procedure. I can Google it. I can get on ChatGPT. I can do all these things and become a lawyer overnight and handle this on my own. And that's not the case, particularly, with emergency suspensions, whether you're dealing with an emergency suspension where you're able to participate in the hearing, or dealing with an emergency suspension that was granted without your participation. At the end of the day, you trying to handle it on your own is a huge, huge mistake.
Your license is way too valuable to risk. Hire someone who knows the system. Tip number 9, avoid digital shortcuts. Be very careful with your digital records. What you think is harmless could look like fraud.
Deleting documentation is the equivalent of like ripping up a piece of paper. Sometimes I don't think that they realize that that's the equivalent of it because there's so many things that can be normalized in our environment. And audit trails, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in a minute, are very real, and that stuff can be seen. And that never looks good up on the big screen. The big screen, what we're going to reference many times, is going to be anytime you're in a court of law. So that's just like a witty little phrase that I like to say, but the reality is when you're sitting in a courtroom and that will be up on the big screen and you're going to be asked about were you copying and pasting, that's an issue.
Treat your digital documentation with the same care you would your paper charts. Tip number 10, and our final tip, be honest. Be honest and forthright, especially during investigations.
Really, be honest, right? That's I think makes more impression on everybody, including us. If you tell the truth, we can't always predict what the outcome's going to be, but if everyone knows what happened, then usually leads to better results for everybody. And when you mislead, not only do we get upset, usually the judges do as well.
Accountability goes a long way. Honesty often leads to an informal resolution. That wraps up our top 10 tips for license holders. Whether you are renewing, applying, or responding to a complaint, these tips are here to help you protect your license and your livelihood. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and check out our full Know Your Regulator library for more episodes. Until next time, stay inspired and continue engaging with your regulatory agency.
Know Your Regulator, the podcast that inspires you to engage.